As I mentioned, you're going to get an opportunity today to hear from 8 different ministries that we partner with, representatives from those ministries that will be sharing with us. I think in the church, one of the things that we've been guilty of in the past that I feel like the church has been correcting in a lot of ways is focusing at times on evangelism and leading people to faith, which obviously is important, but focusing on that while we tend to neglect or not pay attention to the physical and material needs that people have. A number of the organizations that are sharing this morning will be sharing about missions work they're doing and seeing people come to Christ. Others, though, will be sharing about ways that they're really pursuing justice and helping people have needs met. And I want to read from Isaiah 58 to kind of frame what we're going to be hearing today. Is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke? Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe them, and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood. Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help, and he will say, Here I am. If you do away with the yoke of oppression, with the pointing of fingers and malicious talk, and if you spend yourselves on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like the noonday. I'm going to be sharing a bit more from that chapter later on, but I wanted to do that to kind of frame what you're going to be hearing. The first person you're going to hear from is by video. You're going to hear from John and Kathy sharing from Southeast Asia. A team from our church will actually be going to visit them and also in another place in that country in January. And so we've been corresponding with John and Kathy, and I was excited to have them bring us greetings and share a little bit more about what they're doing.
Hey friends, John and Kathy here from the opposite side of the world. We are so blessed to be connecting with you. I want to thank you for your partnership and tell you that it's been a special time of the year for us. Doesn't feel a lot like Christmas because of the weather, but we're so excited that we're going to see a team of a few of you in a few weeks.
So, as many of you know, we were here in this land 35 years ago. We were here for 10 years. Our children were here with us. At the end of that 10 years, we sensed that God was taking us back to the States. It was a very hard decision because this place had become our home. But we sensed the Lord saying to us at that point that go back to the States, and one day I'll bring you back here when the harvest is ripe. So after 24 years, we're finally back here, and let me tell you, the harvest is ripe. God is moving in this land in mighty ways, and we have seen so much favor on our life, especially as He has connected us with the church, the national church leaders, many opportunities to minister alongside of them to see the kingdom of God come to this beautiful land. And it's as if the seeds that were planted 35 years ago, we are seeing the fruit. So we praise Jesus, and we thank you again for your love, your support, and your care.
Good morning. I'm Cindy King, and I'm here with the Keystone Family Alliance. The Keystone Family Alliance aims to educate, motivate, and equip every believer in the state of Pennsylvania on the needs of vulnerable children and families, and we do that through the local church. Education, I think, is the easy part of my job. There are almost 3,000 children in Pennsylvania waiting to be adopted. Their parental rights have already been terminated. 1,100 of them will age out each year without permanency, no place to call home. 14,000 children are currently in foster care in Pennsylvania without enough homes to care for them. So when children enter care, at times they are sleeping in hotel rooms with caseworkers, going into office spaces with caseworkers, and being sent to foster homes in other counties, and often siblings need to be separated. Across the state, 30 to 40% of grandparents are caring for their grandchildren. That doesn't include the aunts, uncles, older siblings, and other relatives. This is called kinship care, and there are very few resources for this population. So awareness is just the first step. My next job is to motivate churches to in turn motivate their congregations. Our motivation comes from the Bible, where we are called to care for orphans and widows. So I bring the reminder that God's people are His plan A. We are his hands and feet. And from the beginning, he gave specific instructions about caring for those who are less fortunate than us. And I talk about Christmas, no matter what time of year I'm invited to speak with a church or to a church, because Christmas is the best example of Jesus stepping into our brokenness and chaos and then modeling this throughout his ministry. But before leaving, Jesus told us to do the same. Do this in remembrance of me, he said. We hear these words at Easter and whenever we serve communion, but I don't think they were meant just for those times. Do this, Jesus said. Do what? Live in a way that we are willing to be broken for others and willing to give everything. So the final piece of my job is to equip every individual in the state of PA on the needs of vulnerable children and families. We do this in many ways. Here are a few. We have an online portal called Gateway. In the past month, we have seen many needs being met on Gateway, and they continue to be met every day throughout Pennsylvania. Gateway is a place where caseworkers can sign up on one side, and all of us can sign up on the other side. So when a caseworker has a need for a biological family or for a foster family, they can post the need. We will all get an email with that need, and whoever is being nudged to meet the need can click on it, and they'll be connected to the caseworker. In the past month, we've seen a grandmother receive bunk beds so that she could care for those grandchildren in her home. A foster teen with an infant was given supplies and clothing to care for that infant. A single mom of 5 whose baby has extensive medical needs was given help with her mortgage and space heaters to keep her house warm. And a woman who received a new job but needed scrubs to be able to go to work received the clothing that she needed. We also create care communities, which are structured teams of support to care for every foster family. These teams help families stay in the fostering longer and stronger. And we also make sure we're caring for children and youth caseworkers. Every third Thursday of every month, they're receiving breakfast, brunch, lunch, or snacks from a church just like ours. To learn more or to receive a monthly prayer letter or newsletter with updates on needs across the county, you can see me after the service. So here's my encouragement to you. You're hearing from 8 different ministries this morning, ministries that serve the vulnerable. Ministries where each one of us can live out our God-given, non-optional calling of caring for those who don't have the same opportunities and resources that we have, to be the hands and feet of Jesus, to move toward the vulnerable. We are told that without an immediate action step, most of us are going to walk away and forget what we heard this morning. So don't let that be any one of us today. Whatever you hear this morning that tugs at your heart, whatever God is nudging you, take time before you leave to make your intentions known to one of us that are speaking here today or to one of the pastors. Take the next step. I can tell you that walking toward the broken, welcoming them into our homes and lives may be the hardest thing you will ever do. In fact, we're told that our job description includes being sheep among wolves and a heavy burden. But oh, there is such joy in the journey and peace in knowing that we don't carry that burden alone. Everyone can do something. What is your something?
Good morning. My name is Rachel Beatty. I'm the Director of Economic Empowerment for Peace Promise. If you're not familiar with Peace Promise, we're a nonprofit that walks alongside of women who have experienced sexual exploitation or trafficking and help them find restoration and hope. Peace Promise has been working with survivors for over a decade. We realized pretty early on that a lack of job skills and life skills are just a huge barrier for these women to find freedom. Survivors have faced immense trauma that can make it difficult to begin a traditional job, and they often have little to no job history or have a criminal record that can prohibit them from getting hired. This is why we believe that God has called us to own businesses that will offer trauma-informed job skills training. 2023 was a really full year for us, and we had a big focus on economic empowerment. In the summer of 2022, we purchased a building in Camp Hill to house 2 businesses as job skills training for the women that we serve. Good Ground Coffee will be opening first, and I'm so excited to share that construction crew will be wrapping up next week, so we'll be opening our doors this spring. The second business, Soaps by Survivors, is a handmade bath and beauty company that was founded by one of the survivors that we work with. Soaps by Survivors is already operational and will be able to move into the building after the coffee shop is open. And Soaps had such a good year. There's over 200% growth from 2022 to 2023. In addition to housing the businesses, the building that we purchased also has a safe gathering space for the survivors to meet with members of our outreach team. A few women that we work with have already started a Bible study and meet there at the building. I'm just so in awe of God's goodness and faithfulness as I look back on this year. Our growth is accompanied by growing volunteer needs, and God has brought us people eager to serve. We're in the middle of a large capital campaign for the businesses in the building, and though we still have quite a ways to go, the Lord has provided donors and resources exactly when we need them. This church family has been such an amazing support for Peace Promise, so I just want to tell you how grateful we are for all of you, and please continue to keep us in your prayers in 2024. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Don Shank, and for those of you who don't know, my wife Becky and I called Mechanicsburg Brethren Christ Church our home church for many years before we were sent out into full-time Christian ministry. So it's a joy to be back here among friends and family. And this morning I'm here as director of the Tide Ministry to thank you for your engagement with the Tide Ministry and to give you a little bit of an update. You know, whether it's through the financial support that you provide as a congregation, your prayers, words of encouragement, participating in our fundraising events, or some of you have even volunteered, you are part of a growing global evangelistic outreach that is sharing the gospel with people in their own language. The Tide Ministry currently has active ministry bases or partnerships in 12 different countries or regions around the world, spanning 3 continents, declaring the gospel of Jesus Christ through radio and television programs in 30 languages. Now, when you think of that, the number of people that live within that coverage area who speak at least one of those languages, there are approximately 820 million people who are being impacted or who could potentially hear the gospel. That means you are helping to make it possible for 1 out of every 10 people in this world to hear about Jesus in their own language. And I hope you find that inspiring and encouraging, especially in light of the fact that despite all the ministries that are out there, there are still approximately 4 out of every 10 people in this world who do not have access to the gospel, either limited or no access to the gospel. And that's one of our primary operating principles as a Tide Ministry, is to take the gospel to people in their own language, but into areas where they don't have that access, and to share the gospel, to follow it up with discipleship activities on the ground, to plant churches, and to develop local leadership. And I don't have the time this morning to share about all of the various ways that that's happening, but I do want to give you an update on a new outreach that we started in 2023. In May of this year, we entered Cameroon, and we began broadcasting in 2 different languages, reaching 2 different people groups. The one people group are the Bulu people who live in the south. They are a tribal people group who practice witchcraft and worship the water spirits in the rivers. The other group is in the north. They are a group that is deeply entrenched in the Islamic faith. Within the first 2 months of broadcasting there, we had over 3,000 listeners respond to those programs. And of those, 550 made a commitment to follow Jesus Christ. Earlier this month, I had another update from them, and since then, an additional 370 of the Bulu people have accepted Jesus Christ as Lord, and 400 of the Fulfulde in the north have become Christians and converted. And they've managed to baptize 396 into their faith. And there's something, just for me, something very beautiful about that picture. Most of those baptisms happened in the south, but of people who lived in fear of witchcraft and who worship water spirits, stepping into that water and coming up fresh, clean, released of all of that, and having a new life in Christ, full of faith and assurance and hope and joy. Now, the reason most of those baptisms are in the south and not as many in the north is because in that Islamic area, to take that public outward expression of faith through water baptism immediately puts a target on them. And they face persecution from family, from neighbors, from the communities. So pray for those in the north, because there are many who are accepting Christ, but they're living their faith out more privately. So that's just an example that I wanted to share with you. That type of impact is taking place, multiplied over and over again, from Zimbabwe all up through Mozambique, Cameroon, across through Eastern Europe, across Central Asia, India, all the way to Thailand. I could tell you stories about how God is using your support through the Tide ministry to change lives. And so I want to thank you for that. We have some exciting things coming up in the coming year, new areas of outreach, and it's encouraging for us to know that we have people like you in congregations who are willing to stand with us and to move forward as we serve God and pursue the fulfillment of the Great Commission. So thank you for that. If you want to receive regular updates from the Tide Ministry and prayer requests, you can go to thetide.org and sign up for our newsletter. We don't spam you. We send about one a week unless there's urgent prayer requests that need to go out. And Becky and I won't be rushing right out, so if you'd like to connect and ask me some questions directly, feel free to do that. But thank you again, and God bless you.
Thank you, Don. Thank you to the others who shared as well. And you guys are doing a great job of keeping that pretty succinct. I know that it can be a challenge because you have so much to say about your ministry. I wanted to share something else with you this morning to kind of put what you're hearing in context. I had an opportunity to share this several months ago. A friend of mine, John Anthony, was presented with an award as Person of the Year in Mechanicsburg. And for that tribute night, he extended an offer to 20 service organizations and ministries in this area to share what they're doing in the community. And so some of the ministries that you've heard share already and some that you'll hear were able to share that night. And I was able to share this, my friend John had asked me to be the MC that night, and I was able to share this with them and wanted to share it with you as well. I don't know how many of you have wondered about the strangeness, if you will, of the name Mechanicsburg, right? And if you'll see a sign on Trindle Road as you enter the town that says, "Founded by a settlement of mechanics." And you say, well, that's kind of weird. But I want to give you a little context for that. And something that I've heard referred to as a redemptive purpose says that by looking at the physical founding of a community, we can get some hints about what God's purpose is for his church and for his people in working in that community. And so I want to share that with you about the redemptive purpose of Mechanicsburg. Mechanicsburg was founded officially in 1828. It was a halfway point between Harrisburg to the east and Carlisle to the west. And 20 miles of not good roads, a lot of potholes, dirt roads really. And people would stop halfway because it was a long journey, and they would stop for food, they would stop for shelter and rest, and they would stop to have their wagon wheels fixed, thus the mechanics. And because of that, Mechanicsburg grew up as a town. There were places where people could eat, hotels where they could stay overnight, and mechanics or places that would fix broken wagon wheels. Jump forward to today and think about the redemptive purpose that God has for a community. I'm convinced that God's purpose for our church in this community, for his church, is that we would be a place where people could stop on life's journey and receive nourishment, rest, spiritual direction. And as I shared that night with that group of people, many of them not churched, I really found them kind of resonating with that picture. And I believe that's something that we as part of the church here in Mechanicsburg can really embrace. That God's call for our churches, his call for us as individuals, is that as we interact with people on life's journey and they're experiencing brokenness and hurt and pain, that we can point them to the life of Christ. That they can be restored and healed, that they can experience relationship with Jesus. I'd like to share that with you. I'd like you to keep that in mind as you hear these folks share this morning and think about how they're doing that work. And again, back to the end of Isaiah chapter 58. This is God's promise to his people. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame. You will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. Your people will rebuild the ancient ruins and will raise up the age-old foundations. You will be called repairer of broken walls, restorer of streets with dwellings. I believe that that's God's call for his church. I believe that that's his call for each of us. And we're having an opportunity this morning to hear of organizations that are helping to do that work of bringing healing, restoration, and spiritual wholeness to the lives of people. The next people that we're going to get a chance to share from are people that are well known to many of us. Chad and Michelle Winger were a youth pastor couple here at McBIC for 8 years, then planted Mechanicsburg Community Church, which still meets at the Mechanicsburg Middle School, and now they're currently serving with InterVarsity on the campus of University of North Carolina. And so you're going to get to hear greetings from them and an update on what's happening in their ministry.
Good morning, McBIC. I hope you had a Merry Christmas and are having a Happy New Year.
We are Michelle and Chad Winger, and we serve with InterVarsity Christian Fellowship at University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. We are specifically focused on international students. We just want to thank you so much for all of your support and love and care for us throughout this past year and a half since we've been here.
It's invaluable to us. And we just want to start by saying this fall was a really tough beginning to the semester. For many of you may know, but for those of you who don't, the semester started with a tragic shooting where a student shot a professor, and it rocked the campus and especially was impactful to the international students. And it was a really hard time, and in fact, the first couple weeks it was really hard to even set up meetings. But as the semester went on, what we saw was an increase in spiritual conversations and openness to talk about God. We've seen an increase in Bible studies. We've seen an increase in discipleship. And we're just so grateful for what the Lord has done despite this tragic beginning to the semester.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that has really been a highlight of the semester for us is holding a retreat with just a small group of students and scholars who we've become really close with over the past year. Being able to get away with them for a weekend, eat their food, enjoy some of their customs, having them introduce us to more of their culture, and also sharing with them some of our favorite stories of Jesus. Many of them hearing and being a part of these stories for the first time was a really special thing that we have long dreamed of.
Yeah, and another highlight for us over this last year has been the increased involvement and investment of our student leadership group with the ministry. So we have some international students and American students who have a heart for internationals serving to help lead the ministry. And we've just seen them grow in creativity, their sharing of the gospel, and the impact that it's had on the ministry. So, for example, one of the biggest things they've been a part of has been to help shape and form our Friday night dinners and hangouts, which are kind of our biggest gathering of international students. And so at the beginning of 2023, those gatherings were seeing about 10 to 20 international students. And now by the end of the year, we've been seeing over 60 international students at these dinners. And at these dinners, we've seen students giving testimonies of faith, sharing stories about who Jesus is, some of his parables, just incredible testimonies of what God has done through those times. And we're so grateful for the increased investment and creativity of these student leaders. And it's been a joy to serve with them. And along with that, as we look forward to 2024 and just some of our hopes and dreams that we have, one of those is to increase this sense of community among internationals. A term InterVarsity uses is a witnessing community that we're hoping to create and develop even more, where both believing students and seeking students can come together to support one another, to have a place to belong, and also to discover more of who God is and grow in that together. So we're excited about that. And then also with that is we also want to continue to grow in what we call alongside leadership, which basically means instead of us ministering to international students, our desire is to minister alongside with them, where we empower and equip them to lead and minister and serve others, so that as they grow and go back to their home country, they're equipped to bring the message of Jesus back to those countries and cultures. So we're really excited about what God has for us. Thank you so much for listening to this brief update. God bless. Take care and Happy New Year.
Hello, everyone. My name is Isha Mobley. I am the community engagement leader for Bread Coin in the Harrisburg area, and your Pastor Lane Lebo is the Mechanicsburg Bread Coin engagement leader. So I just want to tell you a little bit about Breadcoin. Breadcoin is an innovative economic tool that connects the community, feeds with dignity, and supports local businesses. It's a physical token worth $250, works like a community-wide gift certificate, right, at participating food vendors. Vendors help the community by accepting Breadcoin as a form of payment. It costs them nothing and provides additional revenue for their business. Vendors are also eligible for microfinance program. These loans are low-interest loans that are repaid in Breadcoin. Breadcoin proudly collaborates with local community partners and churches that have been serving their communities, their neighbors for decades. We encourage everyone to use Breadcoins to destigmatize hunger. Breadcoins are especially useful for those without access to a kitchen. Giving Breadcoins to a neighbor preserves their choice, their dignity, when and where to eat. Why use Breadcoins? Breadcoins have 3 times the impact because the money stays local longer. Breadcoins expand the good work of trusted local nonprofits, provides a meal with dignity for neighbors in need, supports businesses that bring jobs and local ownership to underserved communities. How can you get involved? You can join as a Breadcoin vendor. You can provide a meal to others by becoming a recurring donor or purchaser. You can apply to become a partner and get Breadcoins to give out to where you see food insecurity, or you can volunteer. So I had to read that part. So I'm the Harrisburg engagement leader, like I said, and over there in the Harrisburg area, it is making a very huge impact. UPMC is able to use it as an incentive for HIV testing, Hep C testing, as COVID vaccine and flu vaccine. It encourages folks. I'm also the community engagement and outreach coordinator for Christian Churches United. So I come in contact with food insecurity on a regular basis, and it is so useful when you can see the impact of dignity. We love to cook a meal and provide a meal. Who doesn't love that? But when you can go where you want to go with coins that are accepted and walk with dignity and pride and take someone into a restaurant that may not get that on a regular basis, it is so impactful. So I thank you, Mechanicsburg Brethren in Christ, for using it. I met the lady from Peace Promise, and I believe Susan, and I believe she also uses the Breadcoin over here. I want you to know in 2024, we're looking to expand the vendor base over here. We have a team of volunteers to come alongside Pastor Lane and really increase your vendor base over here. So I'm excited with the impact we're able to make, look forward to the future. I hope that you will connect with us to be donors, to impact other vendors, to connect with us. I'll be here for a little bit if you have any questions, and thank you for this opportunity.
Good morning. I'm Rachel Morehouse, and along with Cheryl Hawk, I represent Refugee Care. What we do is we come alongside Church World Service, which is a resettlement agency in Harrisburg, and we provide for our refugee friends any kind of thing that they need outside of the 23 core resettlement services that Church World Service is providing. So at its most basic, that's just friendship. We drink a lot of tea with our friends. We make sure that they have an American person that they can spend time with and that they know. We also do things like provide rides to medical appointments or collect household goods or any number of other things. Cheryl and I have been encouraged by many positive aspects of refugee care this year. As we began to share more with this community, we discovered that many of you are very familiar already with the resettlement process and with that kind of care. So it's been really neat to hear from many of you about your experiences already through BIC World Missions and just your personal vocation and relationships, ways that you're already familiar with new neighbors coming into our community. We've been able to have a couple of really positive gatherings, including a learning and sharing gathering with about a dozen of you in the fall, where we just talked about what you already know about the needs of our new neighbors in this community and your past experiences and blessings in being involved there. There were also 28 of us that gathered for an International Friendsgiving meal the weekend before Thanksgiving, which was such a cool experience where we got to order meals ahead of time that were prepared based on recipes from 5 different families from different countries around the world. My favorite part of that gathering was watching the children spinning the globe to find places like Afghanistan, Syria, and the Democratic Republic of Congo to see where it was that these interesting recipes had come from. And some of the food that they loved and some that they didn't was a great learning opportunity to imagine what it was like to come to America and be fed a peanut butter sandwich. I also understand that at least 4 additional people at McBIC have completed the application process with Church World Service this year, which means that they now have the ability to choose between joining a welcome team, which is about a 6-month commitment to provide ongoing care and support to a new family, or they can also select to be on a list notified of one-time needs and assistance requests so that they can step in as their time allows. I also understand that the Young Adult Ministry collected a gathering of household items to donate to Church World Service, which is an amazing help as they're setting up new apartments for arrivals. There is a great deal of need. We understand that the State Department has notified Church World Service to expect 240 arrivals this fiscal year. That's people, so it can be families between 1-person family or a 12-person family, so we're not sure exactly how many families that will be, but it will be quite a lot. And that is about double the resettlement that was done last year. Less than a third of arrivals do receive volunteer care. There just aren't enough volunteers available to help. So if you're interested in doing that, please talk to Cheryl or me and we can get you connected. There are many, many ways to be part of this community. I just wanted to share with you in closing 2 encouraging stories. One is that I was approached by a generous community member who doesn't have a lot of time, but had heard me talk about a family with ongoing medical needs. And he said, you know, I was at Costco and I realized that my family runs out of things every month. And I was thinking, when I go to Costco at the end of each month and I pick up laundry detergent and diapers and paper towels, what if I pick up, more for this family on an ongoing basis until they're more financially stable? And I was so moved by that thoughtful extension of himself. And of course I said yes. The final story is about how rewarding it is to have ongoing long-term relationships. Some of my friends here I've known now for 2, 4, or 6 years, and it's just incredible to be part of their lives on a long-term basis and truly call them friends. I got a call from a young mom who was asking for help rescheduling a doctor's appointment for her child. It was conflicting with her work schedule. And in her message to me, she actually used the word reschedule. And I hadn't talked to her in a couple months because she's doing really well. And so I was just blown away by the level of English that she was using in her request. So I called her back and I said, you can do it. Call the doctor, say exactly what you told me. I think you can accomplish this. And if you have trouble or you can't get the dates right or they don't understand, that's fine, I'll still help you, but give it a try. And she called me a few hours later and she said, I did it. And I scheduled the next 2 appointments. So I was really, really proud of her and just blessed to be walking alongside with these friends in this way. Thanks so much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Deb Finnefrock, and I'm honored today to share with you about Deeper Still. Deeper Still is a nonprofit ministry dedicated to healing, redemption, and restoration for those that have experienced abortion in their past. Our ministry was started over 20 years ago by Karen Ellison and is headquartered in Knoxville, Tennessee. We have nearly 30 chapters in the U.S., Hawaii, and China, with 3 of those being in Pennsylvania. I've been serving in the ministry for 11 years, 7 of those with our local Eastern PA chapter. We offer cost-free weekend retreats for both women and men. Isaiah 61 is the basis for our retreats, as we proclaim freedom for the captives and affirm God's perfect plan for the sacredness of human life. While many believe that they are forgiven for their abortion, they struggle to forgive themselves. Our invitation is to go beyond forgiveness into a deeper level of healing where the hidden things are brought into the light. past experiences, and life events that made someone vulnerable to have an abortion are examined and dealt with so that strongholds can be broken. Lives really can be changed in one weekend. We are in a war for the soul of our nation, and if you listen to the news, it appears that abortion is a political battle. But abortion really is very much a spiritual battle, a battle for the hearts of the women, men, and babies lost to a culture of death. Our adversary, Satan, wants nothing more than to silence the voices of those that have been lost to abortion. The mothers, fathers, and extended families are all impacted. They are often covered in shame, anger, and unexpressed grief, depression, anxiety, or addiction as the result of their abortion. It's also not unusual for abortion to span multiple generations of a family. Our ministry team is trained and prepared to walk beside each participant in a safe environment that allows them to focus on forgiveness, healing, and restoring their relationship with God, themselves, and others. Most importantly, we are completely dependent on Holy Spirit to move in the lives of our participants. The Lord wants to raise up an army that is a voice for life, and when we get our voice back, we can live out the destiny that God had planned for us all along. Abortion is part of my story too, and I held that secret for over 30 years. My personal Deeper Still retreat was 12 years ago, and I can tell you that I would never have imagined the level of freedom and intimacy that Jesus had waiting for me. That weekend, I finally understood that the quiet whisper of self-doubt I heard for years was a liar. Nothing I did was ever bigger than Jesus' sacrifice on the cross, and I was forever changed. Even if someone has experienced healing in this area of their life, God always has more for us. And this is why we call it Deeper Still. It's time to come out of the shadows and walk fully in the light of God's love. Our Eastern PA chapter held 2 retreats this year. There were 2 male participants, 17 female participants, and 29 children restored to their mothers' and fathers' hearts. At our fall retreat, we had a 77-year-old participant. In her words, she encountered complete freedom from decades of abortion regret. We are very grateful to be a ministry partner with McBIC. More information can be found at our website, which is deeperstillepa.org. Our national site is deeperstill.org, and I'm available for questions, prayers, or more information after this service. Thank you.
I'm just going to wrap up here. I want to echo what several of the speakers who shared said. If God has kind of stirred your heart for any of these, I would encourage you to talk to those folks. Now, I realize there are a lot of people here this morning, so if you're not able to get to someone who spoke about something that you're interested in, reach out to any of our staff, and we'll make sure that you can make that connection. I also thought I would be remiss if I didn't pray for these folks. Several of them talked about some of the sacrifices and things that they encounter as they minister in this way, and I think it'd be really good for us to join together just in laying them before God, asking for His blessing and protection and favor over them as they minister in these ways. So let's pray. Lord, I thank you for all that we've been able to hear this morning. God, it is kind of like we're drinking from a fire hydrant in all the information that we heard. And I do pray, Lord, that you were tugging each of our hearts about ways that we can be involved in seeing you bring your restoration and healing and knowledge of relationship with you to people who desperately need it. I thank you for every one of these individuals who shared and for every organization that they represent. God, they shared briefly, but each of them serve in powerful ways. I pray that you would strengthen them as they serve. I pray that you would protect them from the enemy's desire to derail them and what they're doing. I pray that you would give them favor that as they interact with people, that they would be received well. I pray that people's physical, emotional, and spiritual needs would be met. Lord, I ask that people who don't know you would be brought into relationship with you. And God, I thank you for the opportunity that you give each of us individually and you give us as a church to partner with these organizations and many others. And I pray that in 2024 we would see significant breakthroughs happening in our local community, in our region, and around the world. Thank you for this time. Thank you for all you're doing. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.